In a high school bustling with more than 2,200 students, it's not hard to imagine that many students may never cross paths on a typical day. Factor in all the different courses offered and the great variety of activities available to get involved with, one could think that students might never even encounter one another over the course of 4 years. But it's precisely through those activities that students from all walks can be joined together. In this episode of Senior Spotlight, we travel to Roosevelt High School, where one of the world's oldest art forms has created a common and comfortable space for two very different students. It's after school on Thursday, and the boys and girls Roosevelt bowling teams are starting a long practice.
Well, at the high school level, it's more than just recreational. You know, it brings in the element of competition and teaches the girls to focus more on what they're doing. And also, it's a lot of instruction to get them to be better bowlers, you know, and that's what bringing the coaching part of it comes into, is helping them to be better instead of just going up there and just on a Saturday night bowling with friends and just throwing the ball at the pins. You know, it's to be better, to continually improve your game.
The girls, in particular, have a reputation to uphold.
Last year we went 13-0 in the conference, and then we won the state championship. And then in March every year in Lincoln, Nebraska, at the Star City Lanes, they have an invitational tournament for high school bowlers. And we went down there and we were the #1 seed and we won that.
And the prospects for 2017 look good so far.
From the championship team we had last year, we lost one senior girl. So all of our bowlers that were there, except one, is returning. And we got a nice group of freshmen, incoming freshmen this year that show a lot of promise, are very good bowlers. So overall, I feel that we have a better team than we had last year, just judging by the bowlers we have now.
Helping lead the team this year is senior Lexy.
Myself and Kylie Warner, she's also a senior, so we're kind of the leaders. We kind of focus on, I'm not really a people person, so she's kind of more like getting the group together, and I'm more like, okay, let's work on this, let's work on that. And we really have to set an example, because if half of your team is not doing well that week, you might lose the match. And we're not thinking about that right now. We need to stay undefeated, which we are right now. We've only had 4, so even, it doesn't really work during the regular season because it's individual, but during state and when we start practicing Bakers, we usually bowl like anchor, which is the main spot. So usually you put your top ones in the first position and the last position. So the first one can start it off, the last one can finish it out. And when girls see that we're confident, they start getting confident and they can really just bring up their game. So it's really fun to be the leader, finally.
Lexy has been bowling for a long time.
My mom was a bowler and I kind of liked it, and I have this thing where I don't like to do things like half-heartedly. They're like, oh, it's just a game, let's go have fun. But even if we cosmic bowled, I would bring my bag and be like, all right. So I just have this thing about me where I like to be competitive, so I kept doing it and just really picked it up, and now I'm pretty good at it.
Yes, most people would say the state champion is pretty good at a sport. But you should know that last year's bowling success wasn't Lexy's first state championship.
Well, it wasn't the first sport I did. I was actually a tennis player here, and I started 7th grade on varsity, and I was actually the youngest public school athlete to win state. So I won that in 8th grade. So I really was doing tennis, and my mom pushed me to do tennis, but it wasn't really clicking with me. Like, yeah, I was good at it, but it wasn't really hitting home. So then in 8th grade, I started bowling, and it was fun. We weren't like the best, like Roosevelt had never won like a state title, but I could really feel that I liked it a lot more in the atmosphere. And I was good at both. That sounds so bad, but so I decided to go with bowling, and last year we won state for the first time, and actually next week we're unveiling the banner at a basketball game, so that would be fun.
Lexy's success in bowling is also going to have a huge impact on her future.
I got a full scholarship to Wisconsin Whitewater, which I'm conveniently wearing today, and so that's really fun. They're 7th in the nation, and I'm really glad to keep building my career there. That'll be really fun.
Lexy's a very good bowler. She has been a bowler since she's been a freshman. I wasn't involved with the team at that time, but I believe she started on varsity as a freshman. She brings a lot of energy to the team, and I think the other girls appreciate that, and they kind of look for her to help out in that, you know, showing energy and stuff like that. So, and she brings that to the team. I just kind of leave it up to the senior girls or the more senior bowlers to help lighten the mood and stuff for the younger bowlers, for the freshmen, to keep the mood light and have fun. As you've seen here tonight, you know, the girls seem to have a lot of fun while they're bowling, and I myself try to help keep that atmosphere going too, because bowling is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be work, you know, it's supposed to be fun. And if they don't have fun, then maybe they should find something else to do. I don't know, but I want them all to have fun. That's one of the important things, is, you know, just come out here and have a good time.
We have about 16 girls this year, which my first 4 years I did it, we had 8 or 9, we didn't have a full team. So you have 6 varsity, you have a varsity 1 with 3 people, varsity 2 with 3 people, and then you have your JVs. And you just bowl against a certain team every week. And then in state, it's like individual, like you bowl against the person across from you, and whoever has the highest score gets the point. But at state, you bowl 3 individual games, and every team combines all their points, and then you get in a bracket, and then it's Baker style. Baker style is 1 game, 5 people bowl 1 game, you get 2 frames each. So it's such a team atmosphere that you need to have a good like chemistry, and you have to have at least 5 strong people, otherwise it's not gonna work. Things like tennis, like I could still succeed in my own individual like bracket, and it's still a team thing, but bowling, if you only have a couple good players, then it's not gonna work. So I'm very happy with like how we've grown, and we got some freshmen this year, and our team's really strong. So it's nice to, I usually stay with individual sports because I don't like to rely on anyone, but I feel like I can really trust my team, and hopefully we can do it again this year and senior year off on the right foot.
To be fair, you wouldn't be alone if you don't immediately think of bowling when you think about high school athletics. But both Lexy and her coach are hoping that will change in light of recent successes.
You know, we're a club sport, and as an organization, we're trying to really hard to make it a high school sport. We'd like to see it evolve to that. I think it's a sport that a lot of kids could participate in. You know, some kids aren't as athletic as others, and certainly being a good athlete helps you to be a good bowler, but it's not a prerequisite, you know, as far as training and stuff like that, you know, like weightlifting or anything like that. It doesn't really involve that, you know. It's more of it's a mind game, you know. It takes concentration and focus, and I think that's something that all kids can benefit from. When you come here to this sport bowl specifically, on a Saturday morning, all of these lanes, all 24 lanes are full of kids bowling, you know, from a young age, you know, 5, 6 years old, all the way up to seniors in high school. And I hope a lot of more kids come out for this sport, you know. It's fun, you know, and a lot of kids seem to enjoy that, you know, something for them to do. Get involved in that, in an extracurricular activity. There's a meet every Friday. You know, come out and watch us, see what goes on. I think you'll be impressed with what you see, not just with the girls, or not just Roosevelt specifically, but any team in Washington, Lincoln, or Gorman. Watch those girls bowl, watch the boys bowl. I think it'd be very interesting to see them compete against each other, you know. I'd like to see more people come out and watch them.
I guess the way they're set up, like tennis, you can't be all loud and rowdy. Bowling, people don't really get it, so they don't really come. So I guess I just chose those out there sports, but like state, it's almost as loud as a football game. It's mostly family and stuff, but it gets intense, and you can lose your voice, you can do all these things, and when people hear that I'm going to college for bowling, like they don't even know it's a thing. And I really think people do need to take it seriously. I mean, we get the Sunday afternoon slot on ESPN even. Like even the professional bowlers don't get as much respect as I think they should. And every sport has something that's hard about it. Like it's a little frustrating when people think it's easy, but then they go and bowl for fun and they get, what, a 40? So I just wish that everyone had a little more respect for it. And other than the softball team, we were the only like Roosevelt team that brought home a state championship, and I still think no one really takes it seriously, so that's kind of disappointing, but you know, you live and you learn. I'll be going on a scholarship while they can go do their thing. I mean, it's okay. Long expected Jesus, born to set thy people, set us free.
Inside the Roosevelt Building this December day, another student is doing his own thing.
Well, on any given day, we run 8 to 10 rehearsals every single day. So we have 3 curricular choirs and 5 ensembles on top of that. So our door swings over 500 times a day with concert choir and freshman chorus and mixed chorus. We have 2 show choirs, a men's choir, a women's choir, a chamber choir. It's energetic. Tonight is a winter concert of all of our choirs that meet during the day. So basically all of those choirs I mentioned, other than the show choirs, will be singing holiday classics this evening. Brady has been involved in every possible choir that has been made available to him over his 4 years at Roosevelt. He now is in concert choir and executive chamber. He is in the men's choir called President's Men, and he is in the executive suite show choir. So he's highly involved and offers a strong sense of leadership in every single one of those groups.
Brady knew he liked singing from a young age, but it took some coaxing to get this deeply devoted to it.
Probably when I was, 3 and found out the acoustics of a shower and how great they sound, belting out anything from Nightmare Before Christmas, real kind of twisted kids movie, but I loved it. So I'd just be belting out just random songs from that. And my mom wanted to put me in choir in elementary school, and I did not want to be in choir at all because I saw what choir boys were, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be in that, And then around middle school, my dad had put me in a band. He put me in a choir, and I remember sobbing the first day of school because I did not want to be in choir or band. And he's like, just go to the first day, see how it is, and tell me what you think. And so I went, and I actually had a ton of fun. And I was like, oh, okay, this is not, being a choir boy wearing, white turtlenecks is what the elementary school I went to, all the choir boys wore white turtlenecks, and I thought that was really geeky and whatnot. And so it wasn't like that at all. It was a lot more modern and up to date, and kind of it's cool to be a guy that can sing. And it's cool to be a guy that is, involved in music, and it's not, you don't always have to do sports. You don't always have to, be great at athletics. Me finding my passion in music definitely came in middle school with my middle school teachers, and they just put in the drive in me that this could literally be a lifelong career for you if you let it. And so I'm just taking it and running with it.
We have an incredibly large group of seniors this year who are all invested and really step up as role models for all of the younger singers coming up. This particular group of seniors has watched this department grow and kind of explode over their 4 years here. This group of seniors has been a part of the choir department when we were going through growing pains and learning how to walk and learning how to run, and now they are really reaping the benefits of their efforts and what they've put in over the last 4 years, and they know how to step up and be role models and kind of show those younger students coming up, this is what we had to do to make this excellent, and now we're handing the baton to you and it's your turn to take off. So it's an impressive group of seniors, and Brady is one of them. I think the thing that I've noticed most about Brady developing as a musician is coming into his own and figuring out how to be an individual and maximize on his own talents and offer himself rather than, a lot of young singers try to emulate their favorite people or be someone else. And Brady has figured out who he is and taking that to the highest potential, maximizing on that talent and just being 100% Brady, and it's been phenomenal to watch.
If this devotion to vocal music wasn't enough, Brady is also on student council. He's a part of Link Crew, which introduces freshmen to Roosevelt at the beginning of the school year. He's been the MC of the talent show for the past 2 years. And
you see mascots in movies, you see them in colleges, you see them in, the NFL professionally, and they're so funny. Like, you see mascot montages on the internet and whatnot, and they're so funny. And I was like, well, why don't we have one? And through different teachers and different alumni, they've said, yeah, we've had a mascot costume. We used to have a huge blow-up one that was super cool. And I was like, well, where is it? Why don't we have it? And someone said, oh, well, it broke, well, it's run down. And I was like, I need to find a mascot costume. And so Mr. Hansen luckily had a makeshift one that I'd wear to some games. And so I would, stand kind of by the front of the student section and lead some of the cheers, I guess. And then Casey Miley, I went to him, and he's kind of the activities director here at Roosevelt. And I was like, hey, where's Teddy? And he goes, oh, he's in the back. What? Come on, why isn't this a thing? And so it's in this huge black box. It's in the back of my car right now, actually. And it was just in this box. And he's like, yeah, well, I think a piece may be missing or something, but if you can get it fixed, we'll take care of you. I was like, you got it. So I got new batteries for it, and it's like air conditioned, and it takes in air and it just blows it up. And then we had to, me and Michael Leffering, makeshifted PVC pipe to go up and cross so that it holds up the head of it so I don't, blow in the wind. So along with that, we finally got it to work, and I did it at a few of the football games. And Mr. Miley let me go down by the cheerleaders this time, and that was a really fun thing to do. So I'll probably have to bring it back for basketball games.
Well, Brady's highly involved and is very friendly. He's a friend to many. So he's involved in all facets of the school. One of my favorite roles Brady plays at Roosevelt is watching him as our mascot, Teddy Roosevelt, at the football games. I mean, it's just contagious to watch his enthusiasm and his school spirit, and he takes that into everything he does. So he's certainly a part of the culture here. Being as involved as he is, and there are a number of students who do it, I'm just in awe of them every single day. It's a huge commitment. It takes discipline. It takes an endurance that a lot of people don't understand. They're involved in several activities that take them from 7:30 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, and then they stay up for hours doing their homework and getting good grades and staying eligible, and on top of all of it, they're worried about college and scholarships and all of the extra things they do. So it's definitely a strength and an endurance and a discipline that people like Brady and other students like him have to show to make it through, and they do it gracefully.
While Brady is finishing his academic high school career with advanced placement classes, Lexy admits her schedule is a little more relaxed.
Oh man, I'm taking it easy this year. I have 5 classes, and I have open lunch, and then I have a 2-period outdoor adventure. So we just go outside and do stuff. Like today we skied, and then I come here for play production, and I love that, obviously. So the school I'm going to doesn't require 4 years of math or science, so I'm just taking it easy. I mean, it's kind of nice.
But in truth, both of these students are far busier than we've let on. Lexy and Brady share a passion that draws in students of all kinds and has a tendency to get into one's blood.
I've been fortunate that it's either the appeal of the lights and the reception of an audience, or they just feel very comfortable in the drama club and the drama group, which I have always kind of felt is probably the most inclusive, warm, inviting group there is. Definitely, it takes all types to put on theater. So I think most people who kind of give it a try, they realize that they really feel at home. So I've been blessed with that, and I think it's not so much anything to do with me as much as just the the students we've had involved are so warm and welcoming that people just feel very comfortable. So once they come, they don't leave.
For Brady, This interest started early too.
I'd have to say it started in my middle school roots a little bit, doing a little speech and drama, and really, I've always been into movies. I've always watched movies, Jim Carrey, any of the Marvel movies, and I've always loved playing pretend. I would go home from school and I'd just dress up in a costume. And whenever guests would be over at my house, it'd be, Brady is Captain Underpants today, or Brady is, Spider-Man climbing on the chandelier and whatnot. And from there, it was kind of like, well, why don't you try, stage acting? And so when I came to Roosevelt, I heard about auditions for The Jungle Book. I was like, hey, I know The Jungle Book, the bare necessities. So I was like, all right, let's go try out for it. And so I had talked to Mr. Hansen about auditioning, and he was like, yeah, just come on and we'll see what you got. And so just from there, I've been exposed to a lot of people who would really encourage me to keep doing shows. And so from then on, I've just been involved in theater.
Roosevelt has several classes available for students interested in this art.
Well, we have 4 offerings. The theater class begins with Theater 1 and then Theater 2. Theater 1 is more of an introduction so that students can sort of just get their toes in the water, so to speak, and perform in class, only in front of their peers. But Theater 2 is where they actually put on the play like Brady is in right now, and Lexy is assistant directing. So that's out of the Theater 2 class. So the class itself puts on a play for the public. So just like any other of our main stage plays, the Theater 2 class has its own play. So with the Theater 1 and Theater 2 progression, students are guaranteed to perform in front of the public if they so desire. Then on the technical side, we have Play Production 1 and Play Production 2. Again, it's a progression as far as a student's desire to get involved. If they just sort of want to feel it out a little bit, then they want to be in Play Production 1. But if they really enjoy Play Production 1, then they have the opportunity to be in Play Production 2, where they get even more involved in leadership roles in the tech areas. Well, Brady hasn't had a lot of time to do the theater. He had to jump past Theater 1 into Theater 2, which I only allow that if they've already been in a number of main stage shows. And Brady's been in main stage shows since his freshman year. In fact, I was trying to recall when he first broke in, and I think it was during our production of Jungle Book, where he was a pretty significant role. And since then, he's been in, I believe, about 15 plays. He could correct me, I imagine, but I think it's roughly 15 plays. So with his busy class schedule, AP classes and all the music classes he's taken, I allowed him to kind of exempt out of Theater 1. Lexy, on the other hand, kind of took the different route in that she was heavily involved in sports, but then she just on a whim took Theater 1 class, and she enjoyed it so much, then she started getting involved in productions. And last year she was almost in every single show. Once she really got a little taste of it, she could not get enough of theater. And then this year, last year she took Theater 2 as well. So she's already been in her Theater 2 production. So this year she decided to volunteer to be our student director. So that's how she's involved with this year's Theater 2 is production as a volunteer director. So she's wanted to take the reins of kind of more of a leadership role in drama, and she does a nice job with that.
This December production, The Dining Room, is a complicated show that draws on the experience and expertise both of these students have to offer.
The way that the script is written is it was normally written for 3 girls and 3 guys. So what they'd do is they'd cycle in and out of parts. And so when it came to us being in the cast, the number of guys we had was far fewer than the number of girls. So Mr. Hansen was like, all right, so we're gonna have every guy play multiple parts. So we would go from playing 5-year-old children to grown men, to grandfathers, to grandmothers with Alzheimer's, to a lot of different stuff. I go from playing around 9-year-old, 7-year-old, preppy kind of schoolboy to a middle-aged man in his 30s who's having an affair with a woman at a child's birthday party. Then I go to playing probably 40, 45-ish man who is helping his mother deal with Alzheimer's and at a Thanksgiving dinner, and how Alzheimer's kind of plays into how she remembers Thanksgiving dinner, how their family tradition has kind of gone away. Then I go to playing Paul the carpenter, the New York carpenter, and from there I have one more role, which is the David role, which is the middle part, the really just really comical, just really out there kind of a kid who's around, I want to say 14. He's 14 and he's just a nerd, just a total geek.
Since I was in the class, I still wanted to be involved, and I asked Mr. Hansen if I could be assistant director, and he said yes. And so they would just go on stage, do the show, and then I would give them notes to make them better, I guess. And Mr. Hansen really let me just kind of lead stuff, which I was surprised of because he's like really good at what he does, so obviously he usually takes over, but he kind of let me do it. And I feel like everyone was able to respect me and listen to me, and I was scared that people would stop liking me because I was like telling them this isn't good, like you have to do this, but it actually turned out pretty well, and I think it's a pretty good show.
Almost everyone who's ever performed can understand the attraction.
I like having people's attention on me. I like being in the spotlight and being able to become a different person and like just show people how good you are at acting, and just being able to put another character on stage. It's really fun. And I got really good feedback from people, so I just kept doing it. And Mr. Hansen seems to like me, so I'm gonna keep doing it.
And in Lexy's case, some of the same gifts that make her a great athlete help make memorable theater productions.
Early on, she helps me with the blocking, which is the movement on stage. She records kind of the experiment in the early stages of rehearsal as to what allows to communicate relationships between characters, but also creates an interesting stage picture for the audience. And since we experiment, some days I'll change it up a little bit, but I'll turn to her and say, now, where were they yesterday? And then she usually has it diagrammed for me. But then as they start getting into their characterization rehearsals, then she gives input onto how she's interpreting their characters and their performances. So she does very much what I do at those stages. She just gives them a perspective from the outsider looking onto the stage as to what we're seeing. But she does have a keen insight into kind of the humanity of theater. So if someone's kind of exploring what their character might be thinking, we kind of do backstories. We create, a complete life for these characters. And she's very observant and analytical in that capacity. So she does a lot. And then in the final rehearsals, we just let them do the show, and then we take notes of what we observe. And then I share my notes, and she shares her notes. And it's kind of a nice collaboration. Last year, her really first major role was in the musical comedy Murders of 1940. I remember she played the role of Bernice, and she was very good at it, a very flamboyant character. And then after that, we went into our musical, Guys and Dolls, where she had kind of an ensemble role, but she still, was more than happy to be in that capacity. But then in our summer show, she stepped into a major role, and that was Rumbo, and we had a lot of fun with that. And then after she finished the summer play, she went over to the community theater and was in their production of Hairspray. So she had a very busy summer. And then this year, coming back to school, she ran lights for our first production, and then now she's the assistant director. And I know she's looking forward to auditioning for our next play, All My Sons. So yeah, like I said, once she got going, there's no stopping her. When I think of Lexy, I just know she's a very tenacious, determined person. So I think when she makes a decision, such as getting involved in theater, she puts her whole heart into it. And I imagine that's what made her a successful athlete too. So she understands commitment and having to work for a goal. And I think that's perhaps what she's found refreshing about theater is that basically what we do is we come together with a common goal to put on a good show, and then everybody has to put themselves in check as to what they need to do to achieve that goal. And I imagine she sees similarities to athletics, but then again without the added stress of competition and the feeling of defeat. Even though we perhaps don't always have our best nights, we never feel defeated because we really are only competing with ourselves in that regard. So yeah, she's, I think her background in sports, but I know as a person too though, she just has that edge. She wants to do as well as she possibly can. And she wants to see that in others too. That's why as a student director, I could tell that it was really important to her that play, the dining room, was the best play we could do.
While Brady's natural ability seems to shine across genres, it's perhaps his growth as an actor that's most impressive.
Whereas I think Lexy is probably more of a technician. I think she's very analytical about the craft of theater. I think Brady's a natural. I think he's a true entertainer. But he has a sense of self-discipline. So I like working with him because he's easy to direct, even though he has all this creative energy. But he takes direction very well. But his gift is that he has a great sense of timing. He's very adept at changing characters. So his characterizations are very solid. So I really think he's one of those performers that comes along ever so often. They just sort of sense that he was made for the stage. And it helps too that he's musically gifted as well. So I think he spent a lot of time in front of an audience, and I think he really thrives on that. Plus the homecoming, the talent show, I think he wrote most of the talent show, and he performed in many of the skits as the MCs do to the transitions between the acts. So yes, especially this year, I don't think he's had a quiet moment. If you've seen him today, his voice is a little rough, and I think it might be catching up with him a little bit. But I think that's the way he just thrives on that. So yeah, between the talent show, and then we came and asked if we could put together a Teddy costume. And then he heard that we had this old big head mascot that nobody's worn in a while, and he was brave enough to try to piece it back together and try that out at a couple of football games. I think he's learned that as cool as it is, being under that big head is not the most comfortable thing. Plus little kids seem to torment you too. But no, he just enjoys, he's creative and he's ambitious. So it didn't surprise me that he would come to me with that idea. But then, yes, his show choir and music, he's always in the top groups because he's just that talented. Last year, he was perfect for our musical, Guys and Dolls. He was one of the leads, Nathan Detroit, and I think just really played that part very, very well.
He's very invested in music and theater, and Brady's always going to keep learning, and he's always going to keep improving. He loves to please an audience, so I think performance is definitely in his future, and he's going to find the right fit. He's looking at lots of options, but we will see more of him to come.
Brady admits it's not easy to pick favorite productions or roles out of his many at Roosevelt, because he relishes every one.
I always want to say that my favorite show is the current show that I'm doing, but if I had to pick a favorite show, it would have to be either Winnie the Pooh. I played Tigger, and there was one instance where it was, we have matinees during school, so I get to kind of skip school, play hooky for a little bit, and just perform for the little kids. And so one of the matinees, at the end of the show, I do the Tigger song, the wonderful thing about Tiggers. So I do that, but I get cut off by the cast and crew. They're like, "No, Tigger, be quiet." And so, I kind of, sush up, and then it's the curtain call. Well, the kids started rioting in the audience. they were like, do the Tigger song, we want Tigger, and they kept yelling and screaming, and so all of the cast is like looking at me, and I'm like, and then Hanson from the backlight booth opens up the window, and he goes, do the Tigger song, and I was like, okay, and so I did it one last time, and the kids were like, yeah, oh my gosh, and I was like, oh, this is too great. I had way too much fun with that. So Winnie the Pooh, or we just recently did a musical called Guys and Dolls, and I was fortunate enough to get the lead role of Nathan Detroit, who's like a gambler who's always running 24/7, is keeping a running like 14-year engagement with his fiancee Adelaide, and he doesn't want to get married, and just a lot of convoluted stuff, a lot of betting, gambling problems, kind of stuff, and so that was a lot of fun to do. Another favorite role would be last year we did a student-directed play, the student-written, student-led, everything, called Midnight in Manhattan. It was by one of my best friends, Riley Fullerton, and he had written the script, and one of the characters that I auditioned for and got was Beckett Beckett. It's the same first name and last name, and he's a 1920s New York detective, and it was the first time that I had grown facial hair to play a role, so I was super excited about it, and I grew this mustache that lasted throughout like 3 shows that I did, so I'd have to say Beckett Beckett is probably one of my favorite ones.
The nature of theater is that every play has different characters, and that infinite variety draws students from all activities and backgrounds toward a common purpose.
I mean, the fact that you don't have to have any specific talent to do it, like it's something where you can really grow, and you don't have to have any like experience beforehand. Like sports, you kind of have to have something. And theater, like in class, like Theater 2 class, we just did that one, people started, they were not very comfortable on stage, not good, and by the end, I feel like they would be able to do another show without being guaranteed of being in one. And I think the fact that we all are so different, you get to experience new things instead of being in the same kind of, oh, let's go bowl. Like someone will say, hey, do you want to go to a basketball game and support the cheerleaders? And so I feel like you can get new experiences from everyone. It's not just the same group of people you're always with for sports.
I mean, definitely coming in, the theater department is hugely accepting and very inclusive, and we want more and more people to come in and audition. Now, that's not necessarily competing for roles kind of a thing, but I mean, we do shows based on the talent that we have, and tell you what, Roosevelt's got talent. So all of the freshmen coming in, and when I was a freshman, it was a very like, you know, come on, do theater, like come with us kind of thing. I had a lot of upperclassmen just kind of pull me in as like, hey, like you should do this because you're really fun to work with, you have great energy, and you bring a sense of passion to the craft. And we need to keep the art alive in today's society. So I was like, you know what, why not? So I joined theater, joined drama club, and we have board positions, multiple board positions, and 2 years ago I was the social director, so I took pictures, I had the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter, and then I ran for president and I won that. And definitely the role of president is you have to set the example for the drama club and say, hey, this is kind of what we're about, this is what we're gonna do, these are all of the events we're gonna do. We're talking about going and supporting different drama clubs throughout the school district. So we've gone to Lincoln's performances, Washington's performances, we've gone to a few of the Orpheum performances.
I think it's, like I was saying, it's just pretty inviting, and there's, you know, we do 5 shows, and so some kids can come in for a show or 2 and then go off and do another activity. So they don't have to, you know, they don't have to sign on for all 5 shows. It's like 5 separate seasons. So they can do 1 season of theater and then they can go do a season of athletics or dance or cheer or show choir. But then they are always welcome to come back. Now, sure, there's a group, you know, kind of at the core that are, you know, all 5 shows either on stage or backstage. And that's why I was saying earlier that I think our techies are really part of the glue, because many of them will just stay committed to theater all 5 shows. But they're very self-sacrificing in that they know that they can perhaps just run lights or be stage manager, help with costumes or makeup or props, not looking to be, out in front, but they still have something they know that they're a part of. And since they're so self-sacrificing, then when people come to work with them, they just feel comfortable enough, and then there's not resentment that someone's coming in for a show or doing something. They just always, I've just been very pleased at how everybody just feels like, even though this is the first time they've met this person, they still welcome them, and if they've taken a part that maybe they wanted, there doesn't seem to be a lot of animosity toward these students who come in for a show here or a show there. And I think that's, what we need. I certainly don't want to make theaters or our drama clubs seem like we're so inclusive and exclusive that you have to just be a theater kid. I think you just have to be a Roosevelt kid.
Like any other activity, theater requires dedication and sometimes sacrifices.
Yeah, the parents do sometimes say to me that I spend more time with their kids than they do, or the kids spend more time here than they do at home, and they do more work for me here than they do at home. And I am willing to accept that charge. I think, yeah, that's true. But yeah, I get to know them. Like I said, I've known Brady. I've known Brady even outside of, from his family, but in school, I've known Brady, since freshman year, and I could see him grow and mature, and he really has, and I think many like Brady do, where they kind of come in and they're kind of entertainer types, and then they don't really know how to fit in with the upperclassmen. But then as they become the upperclassmen, then they kind of look more at the discipline area of performing. So yeah, I've really enjoyed, all the, watching, Brady. Lexy, I don't believe I met her until her sophomore year, but even then, it was interesting to see how she's struggled with being in that. There's the pull to be in athletics, but then there's also the pull to do theater, and there's occasionally you do have to make a choice, and I think she had to make a choice recently. Where she chose theater. So you try not to interfere, you let them make their choices, but you kind of watch from afar, but not too afar, to make sure that they're getting the emotional support that they need.
So last year when I first started theater, it was Greater Tuna, and I had to miss about 5 of the rehearsals for bowling practices and matches, and then Mr. Hansen gets a little upset about that, but as long as you tell him beforehand, he's fine. Then Musical Comedy Murders was in the prime time bowling season, so I actually didn't go to any practices, just matches, and the coaches had to trust me that I was doing it outside. And actually on Friday, we had a show at 7 o'clock. You have to be there at 5, get in costume, get ready. Well, that was state. So we start state at 8 in the morning, and of course, it goes to the latest possible time. So I get out of the bowling alley at 6:15, and I had to come back here, get in costume, and I was sitting in my chair, just already had like the hype of just winning state, just sitting there at 6:45, shows at 7, trying to focus, and Mr. Hansen, he just took it in stride. He congratulated me on the down front. Everyone hugged. It was just good energy. So it's actually really nice. And then after state, we go to Nebraska for to get a different experience and go to the bigger states, because Nebraska is the #1 bowling college. So we went down to Nebraska and we did that. And this year they moved the dates. So they moved the dates a week up, and it's the exact show dates of all my sons. So in about, 2 weeks before auditions, I have to decide if I'm gonna miss the very last bowling tournament of my life or if I'm gonna miss the show. And I'm leaning towards the show, but I think it really depends on how we do at state. Because I feel like I can really bring it to a close if we win state. I'll be happy with myself, but it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be really tough. I already talked to Mr. Hansen and my bowling coach about it, and they understand, but it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a rough time, but we'll figure it out. It's always the bowling alley or in the theater, especially those till 9 o'clock rehearsals. Those will get you. And then you don't have any time for homework, but That's why I don't have any hard classes.
I've been looking at SDSU, definitely, USF, all of the in-state kind of schools, and looking at different theater programs, looking at different music programs that I can do. And USF has definitely had a calling to me because both their choir director and theater director, they share students, and they have a huge commitment to their students on what they want to do, how they want to build them up and whatnot. And so I'm really looking to major in, if it is in state or out of state, in theater and music. As some of my friends who have gone to colleges, they have had to decide, is it music or is it theater? And I've debated myself a lot with this. So every year, usually there's one show that I can't do because there's a choir conflict that lands right on that day. And I always go the choir route because it's show choir, and I usually have a huge performance for that. And we only have a certain amount of performances of those throughout the year, so you're probably gonna go with show choir, otherwise you can't, be on the team. So I've always picked choir in that kind of scenario when it's choir or show. But if it were to be like, what's your career path gonna be steered toward? Is it gonna be music or is it gonna be theater? It's kind of like an emotional thing because they're definitely two of my biggest passions, and I don't see why they can't be intertwined together because, there's musical theater, boom, boom, they combine. So if push came to shove, I would probably do theater.
Ideally, and probably, Brady won't have to choose. As for Lexy,
I don't know if I'll be able to do bowling and theater in college, but I'd like to major in theater. But the fact that we're on the road so much for sports, I don't know how it's gonna work out, but fingers crossed. I think if I do major in theater, I would also get a degree in teaching. So I could try to be an actress, but also I have the fallback to be a teacher. So I like both aspects of it because I feel like I was pretty good at paying attention to detail. So I always I'm a person who freaks out about stuff, so I always like to have a plan F. So first plan would be professional bowler, and then actress, and then if that doesn't work out, those are kind of the high dreams, then I would still love my life if I was a teacher for drama.
as these seniors approach the final roles of their high school careers, they are also opening the doors for new performers and upholding the tradition of an open invitation.
What Frank and I have always appreciated was that some students who want to do theater are just too busy with other activities, or they're just very dedicated to their classwork, but summer always allows them a little bit of free time. So if they've had a desire to do theater, well, our summer play works well for them. And for me, it's also been a nice way to see some of the underclassmen who've sort of been kind of waiting in the wings, so to speak, because the summer play, the seniors who graduate, now I do allow them to come back if they really want, but rarely do they come back. They figure once they graduate, they're ready to move on. So it gives the underclassmen a chance to kind of establish that they're ready to, take over and prove that theater will not die now that these seniors have graduated. So we start with, I think, good momentum in the summer, and some people start to, again, kind of rise to the top as far as their level of commitment and how, like even in sports, you say they bought into the program. And once they bought in, then I usually see them, sure enough, at the fall auditions. Now there are, again, some that I'd lose because they get involved in something else. But then they still, they still feel connected, so they'll be part of drama club even though they're not in the fall play. But then we have the Theater 2 play, as always, the second during the school year, which is the slot right now, the December slot. And that is, since it has to be produced out of the Theater 2 class, students know if they sign up at Register for Theater 2, they know they're going to be in one of the 5 plays. And even if that's the only play, they know they're guaranteed one play. So they have that. And then when we get to the spring semester, then we have the January show, which usually unfortunately, recently, it's right on top of show choir season, so I am doing smaller shows now in that January slot because I lose so many people like Brady to show choir. But then we still have time for one more in April, which show choir is winding down then. So I get a lot of those students to come back. And last year that was our musical, and will probably be next year as well. So we still have one big final production in April. So there's just always a production in the works. And even though, some people might think, well, and maybe at a time I was a little concerned about how I lose a lot of the students like Brady to show choir. He really opens the door for other students to come in and really show them their talents in that January slot. So there's just always an opportunity, and with all that opportunity, I've gotten to know a lot of students, and even though they probably don't call themselves actual theater kids because they're in everything else, to me, I just feel like I've had a chance to get to know a lot of them on a different level.
There will be plenty of opportunities to see Lexy and Brady in their varied roles throughout the rest of the year. For a complete listing of all upcoming theater productions, bowling meets, and choir performances, visit the Roosevelt page on the Sioux Falls School District's website and click Calendar.